Okay, let's start, guys. A very warm welcome to everyone. Let's get started with a masterclass. So I'll hand over the masterclass to Ekta. Ekta, the stage is all yours.
All right. So I think people have already introduced me, but however, I will still like to give a small introduction about myself. Well, my name is Ekta, and I am basically currently serving as a senior data scientist with the AI services team of Fractal Analytics. With over a 6+ years of experience dedicatedly into the field of analytics, I've had the privilege of working across multiple organizations like Deloitte, Capgemini, IBM, Tech Mahindra, and many more platforms. Okay, so throughout my career journey, I have developed a profound understanding of consumer behavior and marketing dynamics, and my expertise rely around predictive modeling, machine learning, and currently I'm getting my hands dirty on deep learning reinforcement agents. Okay. So that's a little bit about me. Okay. Now let's not waste the time more and quickly start up with the session. I want to understand from the audience. Okay, so how many of you are, like if you are a full stack developer and aspiring to, get into interviews as a full stack developer, you can write full stack developer. Okay, if in case you are a person who is more of like a uh, data scientist or an AI expert, so you can put that up in the chat. Okay, it would be great if you put it in the chat so that I understand the target audience, and accordingly we will be discussing across library. So before even registering for the masterclass, you would have known that this particular masterclass is all about Python libraries that every interviewer will expect in basically interviews. Okay, so if you guys can put that in the chat, that would be really great. Hey students, I hope I'm audible to you guys. So before we move ahead and get started with it, I would highly appreciate if you can basically put up, like if you are a aspiring data scientist or an aspiring developer in the chat, that would be really great so that accordingly we can move ahead and discuss across the various libraries that we have. So Varshini, how about you, dear? Like I see Naveen has put that up as a data science. What about you, Varshini? What are you looking at? Like full stack, I mean, the development part, or data science and AI? Data science and ML. Okay, great. We have two heads up for data science and ML. That's great. So accordingly, I'll move ahead. Don't worry, the team is solving it from the background, and you guys will be able to chat around because I want you guys to interact with me. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now, in the perspective of data science, okay, see, overall libraries that we have in Python, we have multiple libraries, and Python is particularly a language wherein like it supports multiple libraries. What are these libraries? Okay. When I talk in terms of a layman language, you can consider these libraries as a collection of multiple functions stored together. Okay, just like we have libraries in colleges and school, right? What do we have in libraries? In libraries, we have multiple sections are there. Like you will see a science section, you will see basically a math section, you will see economics section, and in those sections, you will see multiple books are being kept for these particular sections. Okay. Likewise, you can consider these libraries as nothing but like a collection of multiple similar kind of functions. Okay. So can you guys tell me like which libraries are known to you? You guys are targeting at data science and ML perspective, like future data scientists and future business, ML engineers, pandas and numpy. Great. What else? What else do you guys see other than pandas and numpy? That is basically a stand, like when I talk in terms of like dealing around with data science and data structure manipulation, I would say. So these two libraries are the one which you will need, that is for sure. Okay. So when I talk in terms of data structures, manipulation, and wrangling, okay, you basically have these two libraries, which is pandas and numpy. Okay. Then what else? We have visualization library. What all visualization libraries are known to you? So in terms of interview perspective, if I say, right, matplotlib, okay, then you have Seaborn. These two libraries are the most basic libraries for in terms of interview perspective that can be asked to you. But apart from this also, we have multiple visualization libraries, like we have Plotly, we have GraphViz. Okay. So these are various visualization libraries that you will come across. But again, now let's say that I want to look into code optimization part. Okay. Or maybe I basically want to look into file handling and interaction part. Okay. Or maybe when I'm dealing around with my data, I have date time related parameters there. Okay. So for all of these purposes, we have multiple libraries which are available. Okay. For example, can you name a file handling and OS interaction library to me? File handling and OS interaction library. These are certain questions which I would highly appreciate. Yeah, shuttle OS, exactly. Okay. So these are the most basic ones. OS and shuttle. Okay. Now, when I say certain standard libraries, okay, in Python, what are the most basic ones? Random library, math library, which are the most basic ones that when I say certain standard libraries in terms of what do we say? Python. Okay. And if in case I tell you text processing library, have you heard about any kind of text processing libraries? Yes, no, maybe. Text to vector. Okay, that is in terms of like NLTK, natural language processing entirely. But the base library, when you talk in terms of text processing, string, and you also have regular expressions. Okay, these are the most base one when you talk in terms of text library. Okay, NLTK or ESRE libraries, so these are coming in the picture of natural language processing entirely. Okay, ITER tools is again a library which is more of into the data structure and algorithm dealing. Okay, in fact, when we talk in terms of data structure and algorithm dealing, we also have libraries such as ITER tools. You have collections. Okay, so these are the various libraries that you will be coming across with. Okay, now I am not gonna get into more part of it because it's like jitna you dig around with Python, you are going to have more and more kind of libraries involved there. Okay, but what we'll do is we'll start understanding some of the questions that are being asked across interview perspective when you are going for any kind of Python related interview, and especially like when you are targeting a role. I see that the maximum crowd which has replied to me in the chat, they are basically targeting a role of data science, AI, and ML. Okay, so when I talk in terms of interview perspective, what all questions can be asked? It can be a hands-on question, it can be a theoretical question. Okay, it can be any of it. Okay, so what I want to understand from you people is that you guys have started already given interviews, trying your hands around, wherein like you can, interview in terms of, preparing for your interviews in a way. Okay. So what all questions so far you people have come across? Like in terms of Python, which was a little difficult for you to understand maybe. So let me know. You can put that up in the chat. Or maybe like in the interview, you could not crack it up easily. Or you stumbled upon it. Or any question that according to you guys is frequently being asked. Python multiprocessing and threading for file processing. Okay, but I have got one question from a student. How about others? सिर्फ एक ही स्टूडेंट ने इंटरव्यू दिया, बाकी लोगों ने नहीं दिया अभी तक. Is it so? Come on, guys. Put in certain questions. Have you not started giving interviews yet? No, you have not. Some people have, but some people have not. So what were the certain type of questions which you came across? Okay, you are a fresher. Abhay is a fresher entirely. Okay, so you have not even prepared. Okay, let me do one thing. Okay, I'm going to start with certain set of questions. Okay, and introduce yourself is not a Python related question, Naveen. Come on. Okay, and I will basically come to like other questions as well, which are being asked. Shrikar, because since there are multiple freshers as well, let's start with a little bit base kind of a question, and then I'll come to your set of questions. Okay, so let's move ahead. Before even starting with a Python library related question, let me tell you, like there was a question which was asked to me. Okay, let's say that there is a list one, which is basically having values like there is basically Shrikar, okay. There is basically Naveen. Okay, these are the names. Okay, and across which there is basically list two, wherein like it's a list of list. Okay, which is basically a list of list. What I want is, okay, I want a dictionary out of this. Okay, wherein like these values are going to act like keys. Okay, these values will act like keys. Again, people who are freshers, okay, to give you an highlighter, don't worry, you need not try the code part, but dictionary is basically nothing but a data structure. Okay, and in Python, this data structure is denoted with a curly bracket. You don't try on the codes, okay, but people who are already well versed with codes, I want to understand how can I pack this as a dictionary, wherein like the list one values will become the keys and list two values will become the values across the dictionary. I've put the question in the chat. Okay, I want you to answer. You can put your codes in the chat for me. Okay. How will you do it? It's very easy. Okay. Okay, I see a couple of answers which have come into picture. No, Naveen, what you are telling is different. But I see, Shrikant, what you have answered is partially correct. Okay, what you have answered is partially correct. Okay, this is because what you have done is you have put the zip function there. What does zip function does? Zip function will basically, like it will only zip out the values and it will only give you the, if I only use zip function on top of it, right? If you see, It will give me the memory location where this is getting created. Okay? So in order to view this as a dictionary, I need to use the dict function on top of it. Okay? Now, as your interviewer, what I tell you, okay, fine, this looks good to me. But I don't want you to use the dict function. Rather than that, what I want you to do is I want you to use a library for me here. Okay, which library can be used in order to create the dictionary? Any library that comes up in your mind that can be used in order to create this. Nope. I want it in the terms of dictionary only. It's not pandas, Hemant. Think. Exactly, Naman. It's basically default dictionary, which is coming from which library? It will come from the collections library. Okay. So what is the purpose? Now my question comes to you. What is the purpose of this collections library? Okay. So the collections library is nothing but it provides additional data structure, which can help like an extended form of the Python built-in libraries. Python की अपनी कुछ built-in libraries है. Python has its own built-in library. Like you have list, you have tuple, you have dictionary. But the default dictionary is also present. Okay. So what this default dictionary does, it's basically a dictionary which will provide a default value if the key is missing. Okay, it will basically provide a default value if the key is missing. So from collections, you can basically import this default dictionary. Okay, you have a built-in dictionary also, which will come from your dict function. Okay, but you have this default dictionary. Generally, क्या होता है? Keys cannot be in Python. The keys cannot be what? It cannot be empty. Okay, the keys are supposed to be unique because that is going to act like an index to access the values from your dictionary. Okay, but you have a replacement of that, which is basically default dictionary. How different this default dictionary is that it has a default value of the key if a key is basically missing. Okay, so over here we can use default dictionary, and now how to create this structure using default dictionary? Nothing. All you need to do is you have imported the function. Okay, simply you can basically create another dictionary. Let's say I store it in a variable. Result is equals to and you can pass your list1, list2. Okay. Oh. Sorry, my bad. List to it and post that. Let's say what is the result first. Okay. List is what it is going to have. Okay. The default dictionary it will be created using list. Okay. And for creating it for I can run a loop across it. I can basically put my two lists in it. Okay. And along with these lists, I can basically put up the like what I want in the form of key and what I want in the form of value. So I comma j is something that will be impact, and in my result, I am basically going to give is equals to j. So if you see, the default dictionary has a structure like this. Okay, wherein like it is saying that this is basically like created using list, and as I told you, I needed the key as ekta and whatever values are there across as a like corresponding value to it. Okay, now what if I tell you I want this in the default, the dictionary format which is coming from the Python library, like the standard default ones. So you can simply pass this result into it, and it will finally come into the form of dictionary. Okay, now questions for you people. What is the difference between default dictionary and the dictionary which is there in the Python library, like the built-in Python dictionary? As an interview perspective, I want to understand from you people that what is the difference between the default dictionary and the standard dictionary in Python, and when to use what. No, you have no idea about it. It's fine. Okay. So let me give you a use case scenario. See, dictionary is suitable when you have a complete control over the dictionary keys. Okay. And when you want to explicitly do the error handling, let's say that if in case a key is missing, you want it to raise an error. Okay. For example, like if a particular key is not found, you want it to basically raise an error. That is when you will be using the dictionary. But the default dictionary is useful when you need to automatically initialize values, such as counting item or grouping items, or maybe you want to append two lists with the dictionary. Okay, so the dictionary that you have in like standard Python library, it is for faster. Okay, so if you need any default values and it doesn't have any kind of overhead of checking of default dictionary, so you can basically use dictionary. But let's say that you have a slight overhead because it checks for the default factory also. So that is when like you can use default dictionary. It is a little slower than the the dictionary part. Okay. So if in case the key is not present, dictionary will raise an error. However, if the key is missing, the default dictionary will not raise an error. That's the biggest difference between them. Okay. Automatic handling of missing keys in default dictionary, and in the in the standard dictionary library, it is going to raise a key error. Make sense? Okay. Now let's move ahead. Okay. Coming to the one of the, let's say that the standard Python libraries, which is basically known as random. Okay, random. Have you heard about the random module? I am pretty much sure you would have. The random module. Okay. Python has a famous module which is known as random module. Okay. Now, what all functions are included in this random module? Anybody who knows why this function module is there? Why do we use it for? Random module is basically used for any kind of random number generation. Okay, I want to generate any kind of random values. Okay, not just numbers, generate, you can say random values. It can be like integer, float, strings as well, if you want to choose between certain values. So this is one of it. Okay, so let's say that I want to shuffle an element randomly. All of these kind of questions are asked in, like, we have this in random library. Okay, and the best part about any kind of Python related function is that Python is so well documented, so well documented. If you want to understand, you can simply go to the official documentation, or you can use open source platforms wherein you will find a range of functions. So I just did a Python random module search, and here you will be able to see that so many functions are available for random value generation in Python. Okay, so again, people just said that random number generation. Okay, but no. Okay, there are multiple things which you can do using random library as well. Okay, so some frequently asked questions. For example, the most simplest one. Okay, the most simplest one. How do you generate? How do you basically generate random integer within a specific range? The first question that I'm going to put up for random library is that how do you generate a random integer within a specified range? Rand in function, exactly. Okay, so rand in function is the one which you use in order to generate any kind of random number generation. Now, the best part about this library is that, let's say that I import random, okay, and I use this function for random integer generation. Okay, let's say 1, 25, 15. I want to generate one random integer between it. So whenever I run this, a random integer will be generated. Now, as an interviewer, I ask you that, my ask is that I want you to, sorry, I want to create an array. Okay, I want to create an array which will be full of 4 rows and 5 columns full of random integer. How will you do that? I want to create an array of 4 rows. Okay, create an array of 4 rows and 5 columns with random integers between, let's say, 10 to 50. How will you do that? No answers I see coming in. Will use for loop with list comprehension. Okay, that is also a possibility to be done there, but why to go with the complex one? Okay, now the best part about Python libraries are that, like, certain libraries are integrated with each other. Okay, so if I simply import NumPy, okay, NumPy library, again, it extensively supports multiple libraries together. Like, they are basically support the, for example, NumPy supports pandas, NumPy also supports matplotlib, and it is integrated with random library as well. Okay, so what you can simply do is you can just do np.run, like, rather than accessing that random function from random library, even if you don't import random, you can basically generate the values from here. You'll mention the low and the high value. Okay, I have put 10 to 51, I would need, and you can mention the configuration. As I said, I know I need 4 rows and 5 columns. This will basically help me to generate 4 rows and 5 columns for it. Make sense? Okay. Now, let's say one more question from the random library. Okay. Let's say that I have this list of elements. Okay. List of fruits. Okay. Let me add a couple of it. Okay. And I tell you that from this random list, what I want is I want you to choose a random value. Okay, like any one of the random value is supposed to be chosen, like a randomly chosen fruit from the list. So how can you do that? Okay, how can you do that? We have a function called as random.choice. Okay. Yes, Sukhmanjit, I can do that for you. See, random library is basically a library which helps you to make random selections. Okay, and there are multiple functions in this library for a random number generation, for random float generation, for random choice picking part. Okay, which the name rightly suggests that it's for random value generation. Okay, and let's say that I want to choose a random value between this list. So we have a function called as random.choice. Okay, I can simply pass that fruits list to it, and it will randomly choose one particular fruit from this list for me. Okay. So if you see it, whenever I run this, it is making a random choice for me. Okay. Now, I can also use this random.choice using the NumPy libraries also, because this library is integrated with the random library. Okay, so it's not that, like, if in case you, yes, I will share the notes with you. So if you do not have, if you have not imported the random library, you can access the random library via the NumPy library. Okay, because it is integrated with that library. Okay, now one question again, a last question from random generation. Okay, let's say that I want to simulate Okay, I want to simulate a dice roll. A dice. Ludo khela na Ludo. How many sides does a Ludo have? Okay, so I want to generate. Let's say that I ask you as an interviewer that generate a dice roll for me. So how will you do that? What will be your function that you will use? You have explored that function now. Okay, so what will be the function? Yes, of course, dice roll is going to be random, right? So simply what you can do is, let's say I'll create rand int and I can mention. So now whenever I see this dice roll variable, right, what is stored inside it, you'll see a number is randomly picked between the input numbers which I have given it. Okay, so that is how you can simulate a random like number for yourself. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you another question now. Okay. We have went across the random library. Okay. But the most famous library, when you talk in terms of time, okay, date time module. Okay. So what functions, I mean, questions have you come across? Have you come across in terms of any question in your interviews related to daytime related value? Yes, no, maybe. Or you have read through certain questions related to the like daytime related module. काफी सारे contents available होते हैं, right? So have you come across any of it? Yes, no, maybe. No? Okay, I'll give you certain questions. Okay. I want you to get the current date and time. Currently, क्या date और time हो रहा है? Extracting year and month, ठीक है, I'll get there. Time taken by data structures for creating them, okay, that is also a good one. Which one is faster? ठीक है, no problem, I will help you. We have a time module which will help you to record the time. The first question which I have given you is that how to get the current date and time. I'll put that question up here. So you can do it in a loop there. Or else you can also basically do it using NumPy library. If the library is, I mean, if it's a consecutive one, you can also do it using like np.random.random. You need two consecutive generations, right? So 1,6, 2. So it will give you two values. So whenever you run this, you'll see two consecutive picking. Okay. But answer to the other question which I have put up. How do you generate the current date and time value? Okay, I see people. ठीक है, np.datime.now. Okay, datime.today. Okay, datime.now is the one which we can use. But let's say that, ठीक है, I generated current datetime. Okay, I imported the library, I generated the current data. But अगर आप time देखोगे, if you look at the time, which time is this showing? As an interviewer, again, this is my question for you. Which time is this showing right now? ये क्या time है? What time is this? Exactly. This is basically UTC, Universal Standard Time. Okay, this is your UTC time. Now, I don't want UTC. I want India time. I want you to generate India time. How will you do that? India time, not the UTC. Okay, जब आप basically, there are multiple ways like how this can be done. Okay, now आपने कभी नोटिस किया है जब आप like when you're setting the standard times, okay, when you are setting the standard time, have you ever come across that it is mentioned as Kolkata time, Kolkata slash India slash कुछ ऐसे cities लिखी होती है, Mumbai, Delhi, okay, UTC plus 5:30. Have you seen this? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, you have, right? So, what you can do here is there is something called as like you generate your UTC time. हमारे पास अभी UTC time आ गया, okay? So हमें पता है that we can generate the current UTC time using this. Okay, you can generate the UTC time using this. Okay, so from the daytime module, I'll also import one more function which is known as time delta. Okay, so let's say that I want to add, subtract any time value. Okay, any time value, I can basically do it using this time delta. All you need to do is to the current time, to create the IST underscore time, simply to the current time, I'm going to add up time delta. I'll say that hours is equals to 5, comma, minutes is equals to 30. Okay. Now if you see, let me put this in function. Since it's the daytime object, वो ऐसे दे रहा है. Is that correct? 11:53 हो रहा है. So this is one way of generating it. ठीक है, this is one way of generating it. But आप direct time zone का use करके भी generate कर सकते हो. For example, how Naveen you have mentioned, there is another library. ठीक है, जिसको हम PyTZ बोलते हैं. Okay, it's basically known as import PyTZ. TZ basically Py stands for Python and TZ is for time zone. ठीक है, तो आप सिंपली क्या कर सकते हो, यू कैन बेसिकली सिंपली जनरेट और कॉल फॉर द टाइम जोन. इनफैक्ट इसका जो टाइम जोन्स है ना इस लाइब्रेरी में, देयर आर मल्टीपल टाइम जोन्स व्हिच आर बीन मेंशन्ड. देयर इज अ लिस्ट ऑफ टाइम जोन्स. ठीक है, आई थिंक इसका गिट अवेलेबल है, but I'm not signed into Git. Just a second, I'll sign into Git to show you that. Just a moment. Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible? So these are the various time zones which are available. Okay, this is like a Git for PyTZ, and you'll see the various time zones ka, like the string that needs to be entered to generate the time zone. So for me, what I am basically using it as Asia, and I am using the Kolkata time zone. Okay, so if you see, that is what I have used here, and using this again, I can generate like I can use the datetime.now function and I can get the India time. I've mentioned the time zone that I need it in this time zone. If you put this inside the print function, you'll see it in the correct format. So it is 11:56 at the moment. Okay. So this is another way how you can generate it. Make sense? Okay. Now let's try more questions out here. Okay. Now my question is that let's say that I basically have like I want to create or I want to store like a score, okay, a score of 3 teams. Okay, I want to score the score of 3 teams in a NumPy array form. Okay, I am creating a small game kind of a structure and I want to store the scores in the form of a NumPy array kind of a structure. So how can this be done? At the beginning of the game, score कितना होगा? किसी भी game के beginning में पहली बात तो सोचो, what is going to be the score? At the beginning of the game, what will be the score? 0, right? So what data structure? I mean, I want to store it in the form of a numpy. So which function will I use to generate the numpy array? np dot which function? Do you have a function for generating only zeros in an array? Yes, no, maybe. You do, right? Exactly. So we will use the np.zeros function, and as I told you that I need a 3 by 3 matrix. So you will be passing that as a configuration, and this array will be using, oh, sorry. This array will be used in order to store the scores. Now, my question to you is that which data type it is storing? Okay, let's store in a variable scores is equals to, okay, the numpy np.zeros function. Which data type is it creating? Which type of a data type is this value having? It's a float form, right? It's a float form. You can see the period here. Okay. The period after every 0, it is confirming that it's basically a float form. And in fact, you can use the dtype keyword to verify. So it's a float. Now, I want you to create an array, but I don't want it to be in a float form. I want it to be in the form of like an integer value. I don't want it to be in a float form. I want it to be in a form of an integer value. So how will you do it? Yes, exactly. So simply what we can do in this scenario is that we can mention that the data type is what? The data type is integer. Now, when you see those periods will be gone. Okay, these are like very basic things that you need to, remember, and you need to be, well versed across with. When, especially in the terms of interview, like what we do is we get panicked. Okay, we get panicked, and we basically tend to forget these things. Okay. Now, I'm gonna get on to certain questions which will come from the stats module. Okay. Now, this this question was a very basic question, which was being asked. Okay. But again, that panic situation which gets created amongst us, or the nervousness which we have, what we end up doing is we end up getting, scared. Okay. Let's say that I have these two numpy arrays. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to create a linear regression, but using stats model. So what process do you follow to create a linear regression model using stats model? Okay. And later on, I'm going to ask you questions across this only. So what, how do you do it? How do you break down it? Nobody. Do you know, right? Stats model से भी आप linear regression create कर सकते हो. You can create in fact, logistic regression can also be created using stats model, but statsmodel.api. And how do you do it? Should I answer it for you people if you're not aware? Okay. For the people who are entirely coming from a basic background, okay, who are entirely fresher, if you go back in time when you would have heard about or learned about that equation of a straight line. I think that is the most basic one. याद है y is equals to mx plus c. This is like the most basic one, right? बचपन में पढ़ा था, कहीं पे तो देखा था. Yes, no, maybe. I see only one yes. How about others? You have not heard about it. Okay. So even if you are a fresher, it is okay. We have a library. I mean, we have a entire machine learning model, which is known as linear regression. Okay, which is working on this bachpan wala function, y is equals to mx plus c. Okay, and you can create this model using two ways. You have your two libraries. एक लाइब्रेरी तो आप लोग सब लोग यूज करते ही हो. अगर आप फ्रेशर भी हो तो आपने सुना होगा. एज एन एमएल इंजीनियर आपको पढ़ना है इसके बारे में. एसके लर्न, साइकिट लर्न. हैव यू हर्ड अबाउट इट? है ना, एसके लर्न. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, दिस फंक्शन कैन आल्सो बी क्रिएटेड यूजिंग स्टैट्स मॉडल. The stats model is a standard Python library जिसमें statistics related functions होते हैं, which has stats related function. Make sense? Okay. Have you heard about this library as well? But have you tried to create a linear regression model using stats model? No problem. It's fine. बहुत easy है. But कुछ differently करते हैं हम यार. We do it a little differently. What we do is, जो हमारी linear regression वाला जो model है, which is a scikit-learn model, right? You don't do this step there. Okay? Because why? Because this library, it automatically adds constant. Adds constant मतलब जो ये C value है, this C value is nothing but the intercept value, right? It's our intercept value. Yes, no, maybe. It is. Okay, this C value is nothing but the intercept value. So in the stats model, you need to add it manually. Okay, sklearn will do it automatically. In the stats model, you need to add it manually. Okay, and we have a function which is coming from this model, which is known as ordinary least squared method, OLS. Ordinary least squared. Okay, this model is being used further, and then like we fit the OS model. Okay, just the way we will fit this model. Okay, and that's the same process which will be repeated across here. Okay, I'm not going to get into the working of the model. Okay, of course I will not, but all I want you to understand is जो बचपन वाला y is equals to mx plus c वाला function था, that is basically used in this ML model. ठीक है? So simply, if this kind of a questions arrives onto your end, all you need to do is you need to add the constant, because यहाँ पर आपको add constant करना पड़ेगा. I think my model is not imported. I'll just import it off. From stats model.api. Listen. Okay. Models. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Okay. So if you see, this is how the summary of our model will look like. Okay. Now I'm going to take you through some statistical terms. Okay. How many of you had stats, or how many of you did not have stats? Statistics tha, statistics nahi tha as your subject. Who are coming from BTech background, of course, they will just in the first sem. Okay. But I think BTech people will have it in the first and the second sem. both. Okay, so how do we interpret this kind of a model? Okay, what is the interpretation across this model? We basically look across the p values here. Firstly, we look at the r squared values. Okay, this r squared value is very less. So this model is not a good model. The r squared values jo hoti na, it ranges from 0 to 1. If it is close to 1, that means it's a good model. Okay. But if it is basically close to, like, let's say below 0.5, okay, we say that it's not a good model. And apart from that, we also look at a term called as p-value. Okay, if you look at the p-value here, a p-value which is less than 0.05 will indicate that that feature is statistically important in making the prediction. But if you see, हमारे केस में जो हमारा feature है x1, the p-value is quite high. मतलब this feature is not adding to our prediction. That is how the interpretation is being done. Okay. Well, I see like a lot of blank faces at the moment because I believe that you guys have not yet started moving across these libraries. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a simple library maybe. Okay. Now, as a question, let's say that I have these two values or two lists, I would say, and I want you to help me visualize. Okay. I want you to help me visualize how can I visualize the relationship between these two values by creating a visual. Have you heard about the matplotlib library? Yes, no, maybe. The matplotlib library or the Seaborn library. Yes, you have. Okay, so in the matplotlib or Seaborn library, we have multiple functions which can be used. Okay, and currently what we are trying to visualize is we are going to try to visualize relationship between two numerical values. Between two numerical values. So when it is basically between two numerical values, you have visuals like scatter plot, as you rightly said. What else do you have? You have line plot. Okay. These kind of a plot can be used in order to visualize the relationship between them. Okay. These are the two type of plots which you can use in order to visualize a relationship between variables. Okay. Now let's do that. Okay. So either I can basically simply use the plt.plot function and pass these two values to it. Okay. Or else I can basically, I have not imported the module. That's why that error is coming. So we can quickly import the library. Plot by plot. That's PLT. And let me also import Seaborn. See, Seaborn is basically an extension of library matplotlib. Do you agree with me? Yes, no, maybe. That Seaborn library is an extension of matplotlib. It is. Even if you don't agree with me, believe me, it is an extension. I'll show you how. Like you can consider Seaborn as like graphically more appealing. Why? Let's say that I want to create this scatter plot using Seaborn. Okay. All I will do is I'm going to change the abbreviation which from where I'm getting the function. And the function name is scatterplot in the Seaborn library. Okay. X is equals to. And over here, you need to mention that you are basically passing two positional arguments. Okay. So if you see, this is my plot created using Seaborn, and this is my plot created using matplotlib. Let's say that if in case I had any kind of column names, or like right now it is in the form of list, but if in case if it was a data frame, the Seaborn library will automatically label it using the data frame, like the values here, right? It automatically come from the Seaborn library. Okay. In fact, Seaborn library gives you a lot of customization ahead. Okay, let's say I want to customize the background Okay, I want to set a style to the background. Seaborn library gives you a lot of it. Okay, you have set style for it. If you see, I use a style called as wide grid. It is giving me a grid format. Okay, so that is how this particular library works. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up your question. There was a question which was coming in the beginning related to multi-threading part. Can you drop that question again? I think it was Shrikant or somebody who asked me that questions related to multiprocessing and threading of the file. I think it was Shrikant, right? Ha, it was Shrikant only. Okay, so your question was, you can see that multi-threading and multiprocessing and threading for file processing, and you couldn't answer that question. Okay, see, when I say multi-threading and multiprocessing, okay, you don't have to when you talk in terms of interview perspective. This question was asked to you, which is like I'm pretty much sure the interviewer was very, I would say, good in programming, or he was looking for an expert. But let me give you a brief how you can answer this question smoothly without getting into any kind of trouble. Because if you try to if you're not aware about multi-threading and multiprocessing, and if he asks you complex question related to it, okay, so you will fumble some or other way, or maybe like he will catch you that yeah, this guy is not aware about it. Okay. So how to answer a particular question in an interview, even if you are not aware about it, but always getting to know certain concepts are good. Okay, firstly, understand these two tasks are basically important question concepts when I talk in terms of parallelizing task. Okay, parallelizing task means when you are dealing with file processing in order to improve the performance, these tasks, I mean, these two functions are important. Okay, wherein threading is basically about when you want to run multiple tasks concurrently. Okay, that means parallelly, like you are typically having an input and an output process as well. मतलब read or write साथ में हो रही है file. Okay, because there are times when you have to do this. Okay, wherein like reading and writing are happening concurrently. Okay, so the most basic thing you can say to the interviewer that, see, I have not used it currently, but I know that why is this and for what purpose this kind of thing is being used for. So you can say that for, firstly, both are used for parallelizing task. For parallelly performing multiple tasks. And when I talk in terms of threading, threading is majorly used for reading and writing files concurrently. Okay. You can start your answer by giving this example. Okay. And whereas we talk in terms of multiprocessing. Okay. So if I say in terms of multiprocessing is more suitable for CPU bound task. Okay. So when you want to take the advantage of multiple cores, your CPU comes with cores, right? Yes, no, maybe. I hope you are aware about it, that your CPU comes with a core. Multiple cores are there, 4 core, 2 core. है ना? So a multiprocessing is basically a CPU bound task. Okay, this is more of like a CPU bound task used when you have to take the advantage of advantage of using multiple CPU cores. Okay, now You know, right? Like if in case um, your CPU, it has multiple cores. Okay, not for every task all the cores are going to be used. But let's say that you're processing a large data set and you're performing a very heavy computation. Okay, so in that scenario, what you will want is you will want your all the CPU cores to be used for a single particular task. Does that make sense? Yes, it does, right? So you can utilize multiple CPU cores, or maybe you want to utilize different cores for different tasks. So that is also possible to be done. Okay. So again, like parallel data processing, image processing, like wherein like your higher memory consumption is basically required. That is where multiprocessing will come into picture. But where let's say that like lower memory overhead is there, that is when your memory usage, I mean threading task will come into picture. Okay, so rather than falling into that particular process, you can tell them that you know that you have two different modules which helps you to perform these kind of tasks. Okay, but you have not used it right now, but you are aware about the usage of it. Okay, you actually have two different modules for multiprocessing and multi-threading. Okay, so rather than getting in overly into answering and fumbling on certain things, you can just remember this, that both are basically for parallelizing tasks. Threading is for when you want to perform tasks concurrently, whereas multiprocessing is a CPU bound one. When you want to run tasks parallelly, but you have multiple CPU cores and you want to take the advantage of multiple CPU cores for processing large data sets. Does that make sense? And like, yes, you can access a file, not just one file here, you can access multiple files using it. Okay, uh, I can give you a quick gist of it. For example, I want to access the file. Okay, you have that with open wala read function, right? You can use that function. Okay, let me put that up here. Let's say that I have created a user-defined function which will help me to read and process a file. Okay, this function is going to open and read the file and process it for me. Okay, process in a way that it is just going to print the first 100 rows of it. Okay, now let's say I have a list of files to process. Multiple files are there with that I want to process, which is stored, like the file names are being stored over here. Okay, so using the function, okay, you create a thread for each file processing. You have a function called as thread. Okay, threading dot thread function. This function will help you to create a thread, okay, which will basically execute the process of the file function. Okay, and in order to start the thread, you have a start function, and finally, in order to ensure that your main program, waits for each thread to complete before finishing, you have a join function. Okay, so that's how you can create a thread and you can process all the files one by one. Okay, so again, it is basically used in order to like access multiple read and write process. Okay, so in my function, I'm just reading the file and I'm writing the first 10 values of the file. Okay, whereas when I talk in terms of multiprocessing, okay, we have the multiprocessing.process function. The process function also works in the same way as thread. You have a start and a join. Start to start the process, join to ensure that your main programs wait until each process is completed, and the process function will help you to process like each file one at a time. It creates the overall process of it. Since I do not have files, I am not running it up at the moment. Okay, so you have this process function in order to get your target file processed. Okay. No, we will be using the with open one. So that we ensure that after the usage of that file, the file is also closed. वरना memory consumption बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा. Okay. Now I'm going to open the floor to question and answers. I'm pretty sure that you guys would have multiple set of questions in your head. So feel free to ask the questions that you have. You can drop it in the chat. Okay. I have received one questions related to a Syncyo right now by Ankur. Any further questions? Let me, meanwhile, take his question as well. You can put up the questions that comes into your mind. Okay. See, when I talk in terms of layman, okay, just imagine that you are in a kitchen and you're trying to do multiple dishes together. Matlab, you're trying to cook one dish at a time. Okay, and you have to wait for the stove to heat up, boil water, or wait for the food to cook before you start with the next dish. Okay, and overall process slow है, right? Because you are just waiting around कि एक खाना बन जाएगा तो मैं दूसरा dish बनाऊंगी. Okay, uh, so now think that you have something called as a Syncyo, which is like a smart assistant in your kitchen. Okay, what Syncyo does, it helps you to multitask. Okay, instead of waiting कि हाँ एक तुम्हारा गैस खाली होगा तब जाके तुम दूसरा खाना बनाना स्टार्ट करोगे. What a Syncyo does, a Syncyo is like before even you finish like cooking another dish, it will start chopping like vegetables, or it will start making the masalas and all of that. Okay, so in this way what is happening is जैसे ही आपका दूसरा वाला खत्म होगा वैसे ही you will without any wasting any time, okay, without waiting around time, you are going to directly use the gas again and you will start cooking the other dish. Okay, so in simple terms, Asyncyo is like a programming term wherein like your computer is doing multiple things at once without being stuck. Okay, for example, let's say that you are allowing a program to make a web request. Okay, read from a file, or maybe like wait for a response from a server. Okay, so without freezing or blocking everything else, it is going to perform each of the tasks. Okay, and Asyncyo is like a smart assistant only. It is allowing you to work around multiple tasks in a go. Does that make sense? Okay, there are certain key components in Asyncyo, जैसे event loop हो गया, task हो गया, awaitables हो गया, future हो गया. Okay, so these are the various. It's an entire module. Okay, again, like just like threading and processing, na, it is also a particular module which needs to be imported first. Okay, so you can basically have like multiple processes here. Okay, especially web scraping or input output bond requests जो होते हैं server client applications में concurrent API calls करते time पे this is nicely being used. Okay, does that answer to your question? I'll also put the use cases. Majorly, ये basically web related task पे ही use होता है because like it allows you to deal with a lot of waiting time, because कई बार when you ping the server on like when you're performing web scraping, when you ping the server, network request takes time to ping you back. Okay. Answering to your question, see, guys, you can also put theoretical questions. That's no problem at all. Okay, so there is basically one theoretical questions that I see from Atharva, and this is the question which I have answered multiple times. I keep on getting questions about DSA. Okay, see, data structure and algorithm, of course it is important for data science, but again the depth that you require on the role, it will generally depend on company to company. Okay, so DSA isn't like heavily emphasized जैसे software engineering या system designing interviews में it plays a significant role. Okay, but when I talk in terms of data science, a basic understanding of data structures and algorithm is much needed. Okay, but not like the way you require in terms of like a full stack development role. Okay, so when I say in terms of data scientist, which are the data structures that you will be dealing around with most? You already know, for data manipulation purpose, you have pandas. For any kind of array handling, you have numpy. And these two data structures are basically like the understanding of these concepts, and in these libraries are like it's mandate when I am talking in terms of data, because you will be dealing with large data sets. You will require to manipulate these large data sets. So of course, yes. Now coming to the algorithm understanding, so sorting and searching, of course it is useful because many data scientists, such as data pre-processing का कोई problem हो गया, you require such operations. And also concepts such as time complexity. Okay, when you deal around with big data, big O notations, it is very important to understand how these steps approach, okay, especially when you're working with large data. Okay, and um, algorithm, just like सबसे basic algorithm बता सकते हो, gradient descent. Have you heard about gradient descent? Gradient descent. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, you have, right? So that is basically a technique that you will require to know, because machine learning algorithm itself uses this technique in order to, I won't get into the technical part because I see that many more of you are not coming from a core technical background right now. Okay. But again, that is something which has been used highly. Okay. So, I would recommend you can like whenever you plan on preparing for interviews, you can go to sites like LeetCode or HackerRank. Over there you can practice these kind of questions there. Okay, so again, to answer to your question, basic to intermediate level, I would highly ask you to focus on sorting and searching of arrays. Okay, like trees, because you have like decision trees kind of a questions. And for understanding a relationship in the networks, graphs is something that I would ask you to look into as well. So again, repeating basic sorting and searching algorithms like quick sort, merge sort. Okay, and overall our understanding of it is good to have knowledge. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. Now coming to the next question, answering to the next question, how to create data chart and data graph, data in graph. Which graph are you talking in regards to? This, I'll just keep on putting the question so that you guys are also aware about what question I am answering right now. Okay. See, for creating a basic chart or graph, you can use Matplotlib library. Okay. You also have Seaborn, and let's say that you want to add in interactivity. Okay. So you have library like Plotly in order to create the charts. So I would rather say libraries like Matplotlib, Seaborn, and you have Plotly for interactive plots. Now, your question is, select the data in graph. Well, selecting a data in graph, I am not quite sure about what do you mean here. Is, are you talking in terms of the interactivity of your plot? Okay, then Plotly is something that can be used. But if you're asking about, conditionally selecting a data and then plotting it up, so you can do a conditional selection, okay, in the pandas library itself. Okay. In the pandas library itself, it allows you to select the data and it allows you to plot it accordingly. Okay. I am not sure about your question there. If you can brief Vivek a little more on the question end, that would be really helpful. Okay. What tech stack? Next question is for from Ankur. Okay, I'll just put it up here. What tech stack we should put for full stack developer and for data engineer if we are experienced and wanted to switch domain? Okay, like you are currently working as a full stack developer and you want to switch into the data engineering domain. Is that your question, Ankur? Ankur, let me know if I am understanding your. Okay, you are into cloud support right now, and your goal is to either be a data engineer or full stack developer. Is that what I am understanding correctly now? Okay, that's great. Okay, so see, as a full stack Python developer, for both, like let's say front end and back end as well. Okay, you of course when you talk in terms of development, you do have front end and back end, right? Okay. So when I talk in terms of development, and you do have full stack, I mean, front end and back end. Okay. So firstly, you need to have Python frameworks. For example, Flask or Django for development purpose, for web development purpose. Okay. Django is more rich in features, no doubt. Okay. While Flask is light in weight and flexible, due to which it is basically being used. Okay. So I would recommend Python frameworks. Like Flask and Django. Okay. Apart from that, you can also look into Fast API for building, asynchronous capabilities. Then you will need a DB knowledge, and I guess you will already have that, if I'm not wrong. Database, query, language, SQL being one of it. Okay. You can also seek and learn NoSQL if that's something which interests you. Let's say that you see certain job requirements that you are looking into, or वहाँ पे MongoDB is something which has been asked to you. Okay, so you can get your hands dirty on NoSQL as well. Okay, if you want to get into core, development part, so you can look into API developments like RESTful API. Again, Flask or Django are the frameworks which will be supporting it eventually. Okay, and these are more of like a back end kind of a role. But if you're looking for a front end kind of a role, okay, so वहाँ पर HTML, JavaScript, that will come into, majorly into picture. Okay, if you are looking into these kind of things that I spoke here, is more of in the perspective of a back-end development for Python. But for front-end developer, you will need HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all of these like JavaScript frameworks basically. जैसे React हो गया, Next.js हो गया, all of this. Okay. Now let's say that आपको basically overall like full stack developer वाला end नहीं देखना, but you want to get it into what do we say, data engineering part. Okay, your overall like if you're coming as a cloud engineer right now, so I would recommend you to, because it will be that's what I am assuming, right? It will be quite easier and flexible for you to enter as a data engineer. Okay, and for a data engineering role, you will need Python, you will need SQL, you will also need Scala. Okay, when you are dealing around with big data. Okay, so you would have heard about Apache, Spark. Okay, so this is something that you will be needing when I talk in terms of data engineering. Okay, again, for the data storage part, okay, you are already, I think, cloud engineer with cloud platform that you're working on, dear? Azure, AWS, cloud support. Okay, no problem, but GCP. Okay, so basically, Google BigQuery. Have you heard about Google BigQuery? Data storage part. Okay, because over here, data storage will also be playing a role. So you have multiple, Snowflake is there. Snowflake is something that I see that many companies are basically offering, what do we say, upskilling part on that end. So you can see if you have that leverage of upskilling there. Okay. So these are the various things that you will be needing, and cloud platform is a mandate to have when I talk in terms of like data engineering, because you will be dealing across data pipelines like ADF. You basically have what do we say on Google. Which platform do you have it on Google? I'm not quite sure about. But for automating the process, like all I know is Apache Airflow is there. You have ADFs. Okay. So these are the various things that you will require. Okay. So as a data engineer, data modeling will be your goal. Monitoring and maintaining the data quality will be your goal. And also real-time processing of the data. So for the real-time processing of your data, you have data processing frameworks like the Apache Spark, Kafka, Hadoop. Okay, so these are the things. मतलब ये नहीं कि you should know everything. As a human, it is not possible, right, to know everything. But at least having a just knowledge of it is important. Okay. Now, I'm going to answer the next question. I'm concentrating on, I am a SDE and want to make a transition into data science. SDE, software development engineer. Okay, can you tell me like what all things you are working on at the moment? The SDE guy. Salesforce development. So which technology or which tools are you currently using, like in the perspective of language? Okay, simply, I'm going to highlight on things that you need to know as a data scientist. Firstly, your statistics is supposed to be strong. Okay? You need to have a strong hold on statistics when I say you want to become a data scientist. Okay. Now, database, I think you already have a knowledge across database. So SQL, one query language. Okay. Then you need, because you will be fetching out the data as well, Python. Okay. Apart from that, ML, DL, and NLP concepts. Okay. Now, if I say I am good at machine learning, okay, you can always basically in an interview say that DL and NLP concepts, I know about these concepts, but I don't know, like a depth of it. Okay, I am not aware in terms of, like I have not worked around with it. Okay, but ML related, at least, ML is something that you need to know as a data scientist, and DL and NLP concepts are good to have. Apart from that, a time series analysis is like a, what do we say, add on, and it's revealing for a data scientist to have it on the resume. Okay, so time series analysis is something which is revealing, and it's a good to have knowledge because it makes you stand out. Okay, apart from that, visualization tools, Tableau or Power BI are something again you can have as a good to know knowledge. Make sense? But always, whenever you are basically, planning to transition, start with statistics. And parallelly, start with building your Python knowledge as well. Okay, statistics ka jo theoretical part is there. Start with that so that you start grasping, because I'm pretty sure when in terms of a childhood, you all would have heard about probability distribution, CDF, PDF, CMF. but you don't know where to apply it in today's world. Okay, that is basically applied on data. That is what we as data scientists do. Make sense? Yeah. Now coming to the next question, Varshini, to your question there. You are a pre-final year student and currently concentrating on DS and ML. Varshini, I think I have answered this to your question. I think this answers your question as well. Vivek, I think data analytics so, chahe data science so, yes. When you talk in terms of data analysis, I would say that DL and LP, these concepts will not be required in core for you. But again, like you can try that as well. Definitely the block. To your question, Ankur, again. In what perspective you are asking this question? Firstly, I want to understand in the perspective of data engineering part. So using these tools, it can be important, but it depends on your specific role, right? So if in terms of data engineering part, like of course, like data flow is for, fully managing the stream and batch processing service. Okay. So yes, if you're working with GCP platform and you need to build a scalable data processing pipeline, of course it is important. Okay. And whereas I talk about data proc, it is relevant for data engineers for working with big data system. Again, dear, you are a human, you can't know everything. But you can know the usage of it. And in the interview, it is always about convincing the other person that you know these things. Maybe or maybe not you have worked around with it, and maybe not you have used it. But if you are aiming at a data engineering role, okay, focusing on these tools will of course help you to stand out, because these are the tools which helps you to scale out the large data, okay, into distributed pipelines. Okay, which modules I need to prepare for data science and AI? Aisha, when I talk in terms of modules, okay, I again come back, okay, to these key concepts. Okay, whenever you're preparing for an interview, these are the key concepts. Now, in an interview perspective, okay, generally what happens is what you put on your resume is something which has been asked. Okay, for example, what project you have worked on, that is something they will ask. And basically, of course, if you have worked on certain projects, Aisha, what tools or what like model you have used. Let's say that you have used a logistic regression part, or if you are doing a project on Power BI, then what are you exactly doing over there? Your project matters. Okay, your project highly matters when you are talking in terms of any interview, because the interviewer is going to concentrate more on the project perspective. So be thorough with what you put onto your resume. And again, when talking in terms of interview perspective, concentrate on these particular things and resume projects. Like whatever you have done in that project, let's say if you have used logistic regression, okay, you say that you have used logistic regression, you are supposed to be well versed. Well versed, matlab, you should know the assumption, math behind it, okay, how it works. The entire working of that model is supposed to be known. Okay, so like I have seen this pattern of things which are being asked in interview. I am talking out of my experience. Maybe I could be wrong. Like मेरे साथ ऐसा हुआ है. Okay, there have been couple of interviews, and I also interview people. So I generally ask them, name your favorite model. And then if you say that it's decision tree, or if you say it's random forest, then what they're going to do is they're going to grill you out on that. Matlab, has that occurred with any of you right now? Like some of you would have given the interviews. Has this kind of scenario come across with anyone? If it's a no as well, it is okay. You can let me know. Yes, one yes, I see. Okay, so this is how it happens, huh? Like, I'm not saying that out of 100, all the 100 are going to do this, but there are certain interviewers who do this, okay, who basically ask you, because since you're saying that this is your favorite model, so if I tell you that Hrithik Roshan is my favorite hero, somehow I'm supposed to know certain things about Hrithik Roshan, or basic things about Hrithik Roshan. Okay, so that's how it works. So that's something I would also recommend you. Whenever given a chance, don't go for a complex model, rather stick to a like easier one. And there is one more pattern which I've noticed. Like, let's say that if they see on your resume you have worked across on 4 to 5 projects, they will ask you, like, can you tell about one of the most interesting project that you have worked on? So try to stick to the one which you are thorough with. Don't try to show it in a way like the most complex one from that, because again the entire interview is going to be revolving around it only. Make sense? See, it depends on, let's say that if you're a fresher, dear, so I would recommend you to put at least 4 to 5 projects, and a good one, कि मतलब सामने वाले इंसान को इंटरेस्टिंग लगे. But if it is basically you are an experienced person, so wherever you have worked around, you will have a knowledge of the data from coming there, and you should put projects centric to that, unless and until you are trying to transition from a very different field. If you are trying to transition from a very different field, then that's another case. Okay. Any further questions? Is a no, not right now. See, as you are entering as a fresher, big data knowledge is not necessary at the moment. Okay, but it can be important depending on your specific nature of your job. Once you advance through your, when I talk about big data, it focuses more of on the data engineering end. Hadoop, Apache, Google BigQuery. This is something which comes into picture there. Okay, so it is not important. I wouldn't say yes for that. So for all data scientists, so it's not important at all. Unless and until you are interviewing for what do we say, a startup, wherein you are going to be the whole and soul. You are going to work as a data engineer. You're going to work as a data scientist. You are going to be the, heart of that project. Like, you are the one who's dealing across. But बहुत कम ऐसा case है. But I won't say that it's mandatory, because big data knowledge is more of on the, data engineering end. And as and when you grow through your career, if you are going to handle large scale data projects, eventually you will learn these big data tools also. Okay? So right now, when you are trying to enter the market as a fresher, do not concentrate on adding certain knowledge which is eventually going to make you confused. Okay, I don't see any further questions coming in. Okay. If you have any further questions, please do feel free to put that up in the chat. If not, we can wrap up the session. Okay, it was really nice having you people. I'm gonna share up this collab notebook with you guys. I'm gonna give it to you in a viewer mode. So I request you to, copy out that. I mean, you can download a copy of it because it's in viewer mode. Yes. No, dear. We use the same operations on the DL end as well. ML flow. So, like, ML operations and DL operations are kind of similar. Matlab, you do not have in a separate module. Just say, for example, for handling ML ops, you have ML flow, right? For registering the model, for reusing the model, or making your model operational, working around with that concept together. So DL maybe we use ML flow. There is no separate library for that. Okay. Any further questions? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, I believe there are no further questions. So, team, I think we can wrap it up the session.
Yeah, I also feel that there's no any further questions that's coming up. So, can we have a clapping emoji for Ekta for conducting this wonderful session, guys?
Thank you so much, people. I much appreciate it. I hope to see you guys on board, and like all the best with your future.